welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya Master Anne-Marie Young. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And our friend Louis de Souza is still off in the Austrian Alps with his family, having a great time. So we will miss him again this week, but he will be back next week as per usual. But this week we continue. Life goes on even without Louis de Souza. It's kind of hard to believe, I know.
Life
But it really does.
Louis.
Yeah, it really does happen. And as usual, Anne-Marie, we have a special guest joining us today. And, I made a mistake, Anne-Marie, before we got started. I know, how I normally ask how to pronounce the last name. I forgot to do that.
That's okay.
So I got to take a swing out of here and just see what I can get. So here we go. I believe his name is Brannon Beliso.
That's right, Beliso.
Oh yeah! All right. Love it. And Brannon is a consultant who has a very interesting take, not just on his consulting business, but on life in general. He has a belief that you really need to help other people get where they want to get to. That's the best way I would summarize it. Now, that's not the way he's going to say it. He's going to give us more details about it. But I just, when you read his bio, you say, this is a guy who's just out there to help people. It's almost hard to believe he has a career going on, but he does. I mean, it's really there. You could tell there's actually a career going on, but just from the way he talks, everything is about helping people. So this is going to be a great conversation. Brannon, thank you for joining us on the program today. How you doing?
Very grateful. Very grateful to be here, Walt. I think service above self is really my whole mantra, through serving others. And there's a very thin line there. I understand being a codependent is not necessarily what when people hear me say that, they think, oh, you're a codependent, your life is miserable. No. I use that airplane theory. If the oxygen drops in the airplane and those masks come down, whose mask do I put on first? Mine. So I'm very passionate about serving others, and it's people before profit. And the byproduct is my companies do really well. But we always put the community first, and we're servants of the community first. And I think when people hear that, they think, well, it's not data driven. I need data. You can't quantify caring. I mean, what's the ROI on caring, right?
Well, I'm not sure you can put it into a number, but I would say the ROI on caring is off the charts. It is spectacular. It's amazing what happens when you do that. I don't care whether you're in business or in, just a private life, or you're off doing something with friends or family or whatever. It pays dividends every time. You just can't necessarily put a dollar figure on it.
No, but I mean, I feel good.
Yeah.
I'm a happier person when I help others. I love giving. It's a wonderful thing.
So give us a little bit of a personal background. Tell us how you got to this place of being the wonderful giving Brannon Beliso.
Well, I posted a video about that this morning to my groups. And, I, as the youngest age possible, 11 months, I went into a foster home. I was physically abused. I was molested. So the victim mindset was something I was born into.
Wow.
And that victim mindset for me allowed me to act inappropriately, behave inappropriately, and think inappropriately, because I always could blame it on my upbringing. I could blame it on my parents. I could blame it on the foster care system. And once I recognized that victim mindset was not a path to happiness, it wasn't going to attract anybody but more negativity into my space, I really took ownership of that. And I don't think it was any one aha moment. It was simply recognizing I'm a full-grown person now, and I have the choices I didn't have as a child. And that within itself was really empowering. And it definitely gave me a lot of hope that I could make the type of changes in my own personal life that would be a great example for, my own family, for the teams that I lead, and for the community I serve.
That's fabulous. And that's actually a continuation of a theme that we've had on the show here. We haven't had it on lately for the last couple of years, but my first few years doing the podcast, I had a co-host named Joel Elston from the Richmond, Virginia area, who has a very interesting background. But among the many amazing things in his background, he has helped 43 foster boys get forever homes. And these were the unadoptable ones. These were the real trouble cases. And one of the factoids I picked up from Joel during those years doing the program that really kind of blew my mind, even the first time he told me, and it has continued to blow my mind every time I think about it. If a kid goes through the foster care system, doesn't get adopted, and ends up getting out at age 18, odds are overwhelming, like well over 95%, he'll either end up dead or in prison.
Mhm.
and I was just blown away by that. So, first of all, congratulations on creating a wonderful life for yourself. Give us a clue how you did it.
You know, people ask about those aha moments. I don't think there's any really one. I think it's a commitment to wake up every day with a deep, deep sense of gratitude and be a better version of myself. I mean, I could tell you there's a lot of different miracles and moments in my life that gave me that sense of clarity that I was on the healthier path, but I don't think it's any one given thing. I do remember at one time I was in the Philippines and I was a pop star. I had the number one album, three top 10 hits, and I had just finished a concert to like 10,000 people. And I never felt more alone than I ever had my whole life. And I was puzzled by that because here I was at the pinnacle of one of the goals of my life. And I was sitting in traffic going to do a TV show, and I was moaning and complaining, to my driver, "Why should I have to sit in traffic? I'm a pop star. I have a number one song." And it was literally like a movie. Everything slowed down. I looked at the side of the road, and there was a kid who was what would they call a squatter, right? He's born into poverty, lives in poverty. He'll probably die in poverty. And I don't know if he was playing with a stick or a rock or what he was doing, but this kid had everything I didn't have, which was that bliss. This
Mm,
child managed to be happy under the most adverse conditions. And I remember sinking down in the back seat of my car, so embarrassed. I was embarrassed to myself. And
mm,
the driver didn't even speak English, but I was so embarrassed. I sat there and I was just like, wow, I can't believe I'm acting this way. I have so much more than this kid monetarily, notoriety and everything. Yet this kid had everything I didn't have. And that was
mm.
one of those big moments. Absolutely.
What do you think was we know what your takeaway was, that's a huge thing, he has what I don't have,
Mhm.
but it's one thing to recognize that, it's another thing to actually make the change, so tell us a little bit about how you made that change.
I think action is we don't often know where the path is going to lead us, but the inertia behind the moment is powerful. And I was just getting ready to sign another 3-year contract, 5-year contract for 3-album deal. I passed on all of it. I sold everything I had, the studio I brought over from here that I was recording at, all of it. And I came back here. And then it was 3 years of celibacy. I didn't date. I didn't do anything. I really went on this path and I walked Joshua Tree alone. I'd sit in the forest and beat drums with men. I stared at a white wall in the Zen center. It didn't matter. I was just committed to
Mm,
achieving happiness that materialism and external things couldn't buy me. Bigger house, better job, more notoriety, different relationship. None of those things. I was like this needy and greedy person, this bottomless pit. Nothing could ever fulfill me. And that's when I truly understood, which I really knew as a child. I just simply didn't want to walk that path, that the true path was inward, right?
mm,
That journey inside. But am I willing to pull back my own covers and take an honest look at the changes I really need to make in myself to be happy with me, right? Warts and all won't. If there's something about myself I don't like, how am I ever going to heal it or embrace it unless I do it with love? But I was taught guilt, shame, that
mm,
doesn't heal it. I just put it as they say, a skeleton in the closet. And that never healed that part. So I had to look at the parts of me that I didn't like and really embrace them with a sense of love and a sense of acceptance, a deep sense of self worth. And I couldn't do that based upon external validations. I had to truly embrace that for myself. And that was probably the bigger challenge because I'm my own best friend, but my own worst enemy every day,
mm,
right?
right, yeah, and I think we all can identify with that because it's so easy to be your own worst enemy. To me, though, the amazing thing, I mean, you must have had mentors somewhere along the line. You must have had some sort of influence to help you, right? Or did you just discover this path by yourself?
I've had many mentors.
Many mentors. Okay.
Many, many mentors. I
Yeah.
I think it's really the ability to wake up with a sense of humility and know that I can
Mm.
always do and be better, and if I'm not getting better, I'm getting worse, and so, I mean, I remember one time it's in my book, Live, Learn, Grow. Um, I wasn't money was still short in my life. I wasn't quite at the point nearly where I am today, and I had a bag of coins. You know how you go to the grocery store and you put it in the coin machines, right?
Oh,
And
right.
turn it into dollar bill. So I had it in the back of my seat, and as I got out of the car, this guy was pushing his shopping cart by, this homeless guy, and he goes, "Excuse me, sir, could you possibly spare some change?" And I looked at this guy, San Francisco, we have a lot of homeless, and he wasn't
Mm,
crazy. And I looked at him, I said, I tell you what, I need a lesson to be learned. I'll give you this whole bag of change if you give me 10 minutes of your time. And he said, sure. Okay. I said, well, you look pretty articulate. Can you tell me, why are you homeless? And he told me, I was a history teacher with a mortgage and several other debts. And I recognized, based upon what I made, that I would die in debt. So I chose no longer to be a history teacher, and I chose the path to be homeless because in San Francisco, it's the best place to be homeless. I could panhandle anywhere from $100 to $200 a day,
yeah.
and there's always a shelter. He says, the art of dumpster diving, you have some of the best food in the world here, and they waste so much food in the restaurants here. And worst case scenario, if I can't get a bed that night, I have enough money to go get a hotel room. I looked at this guy like, what? Really? And this was his version of happiness. And he was totally cool with it. And as he walked off with my bag of change, which was probably $100 or so, right? I'm dumbfounded going, this guy discovered for him what happiness was. That works for him. Who am I to say, right? That works for him. And as he walked away with my money, I went, this guy's successful on his own terms, right? So that's another one of those moments.
What you discovered there was really a wonderful new perspective that you had never had before.
Never, 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 ever, never, ever. I've never dumpster dived, but I'm sure it is an art form. It is an art form. I actually saw a documentary on it at one time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But I think that's one of the most powerful things that we have is the ability to learn new perspectives.
mhm.
We don't really think that too often as an ability, but it really is one because the more perspectives that we can acquire, the more we learn. The more we
Yeah,
learn about ourselves and about others.
and I think the root of all that is in understanding that any life skill we can learn. One
Yeah.
of the ones I've been very passionate about is empathy, the ability to understand and respect the way other people think and see things. And once I understood that I wasn't born with confidence, I wasn't born with self discipline, I wasn't born with empathy, and that it's a life skill, through practice, it can become a habit and it's a skill set I can acquire. And I think that's really powerful. That's real powerful. And that's helped me a lot in being able to see other people's perspectives.
So you've been on this path for quite a few years now. I'm not sure exactly when you stopped your singing career, but I'm going to presume it's been a few years now.
Yeah,
And
it's been a few years. I'm 60 years old, Walt.
okay,
What?
so
So
I don't know when you stopped your career. So I still can't. I still don't know how long it's been, but it's been a while. Let's
it's
put it
been
that
well over
way.
20 years. Yeah,
Okay, that's good. All right.
because I've owned the current businesses I've had for 22 years.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So you've learned a lot in that time. And we're emphasizing here some of the main themes that played a major role in your life during that time. As you've come through that and you come to this side, you've decided you wanted to help other people to get where they want to go, which of course is an opportunity to among other things explore other people's perspectives in a new way. Now you're exploring the perspectives of people who need some assistance, who need some help. What's it been like on this side of the fence, so to speak?
I think you can only keep what you have by giving it away. I mean,
Mm,
that's a philosophy I live dearly by, and also paying it forward. The ability to pay it forward. You want the law of attraction, you want the law of abundance into your space. You need to pay it forward. You're filling up that karma bank. And I don't do it to fill up the karma bank. I do it because it makes me happy. Genuinely makes me happy to pay that forward. I think the big thing, again, life skills like empathy, tolerance, acceptance, patience, and gratitude. I have a very, very deep sense of gratitude because I grew up when money was short. Right?
mm,
I graduated in my father's suit. I wore my father's suit to my graduation. Other
yeah,
than that, every piece of clothing I ever owned was secondhand. Now I own stock in Lululemon, right?
right.
So I take none of it for granted. I wake up every day and my morning ritual is the same. It's exactly the same. I breathe in, I am breathing. I breathe out, I am grateful. And then I go through my gratitude list, and my morning prayers. And before my feet hit the ground, I've already created a state of mind of happiness for me. And music goes on, it makes my family nuts. I sing songs in the morning. I hit that espresso machine. I make morning lattes for me and my wife, because I started drinking coffee like 3 years ago. I was normally a tea drinker. And I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke, I don't do anything like that. And I was spending like $400 a month on coffee at Pete's Coffee. I went, that's insane. Now I drink organic coffee, which is much better for you, but wakes everybody up in the house, the machine's going, music on. I need to be in a state, I want to be in a state where I can make the best of the day no matter what the day offers me. So being on the other side of that, Walt, I'm humbled every day. But I never sympathize with people, and I let them know that. When we're done talking, I say, don't listen to me, don't listen to anybody. The key to empowerment is when you figure it out for yourself. That's where true self-confidence and self-worth comes from. When you make a choice and you choose a path and you execute that path on a daily basis on your own terms without pointing fingers, without blaming people, that's really when the magic happens. We take in data. You can read my book. I read books every day. I'm reading a book right now. We can take in that data, but ultimately, I don't want to be a victim. So I'm not going to blame you as a consultant or you as a mentor or you as a therapist that it's your fault I make the choices I make today. Ultimately, I have to make that choice. So being on this side of it, I'm always mindful, the yin and the yang. Here's my advice. Here's my learned experience. But ultimately, don't listen to me. They go, what? Because you got to figure it out. That's what makes life so cool, right? Is when you have those aha moments for you.
It's very true. Very true. As you were talking about the victimhood thing, and you meant you were pretty much equating victimhood with blame. I mean, there are lots of ways to look at victimhood, but you were drawing a direct connection. Thinking victimhood means you're blaming, constantly blaming. Just kind of go on about that for about a minute. Let's explore that
Well,
for just a
I mean,
moment.
the blame game is so easy. And, gratefully, both my businesses made it through the pandemic. All my businesses, let me retract. Every one business I own made it through the pandemic because I never sat there and oh, poor me, poor me. See, I'm of the mindset, it doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. And that was a huge shift in my mindset. So as we entered this pandemic, it was never whether, because I own two martial arts schools with about 1,000 students. And it was never, well, can they learn online or not learn online? Can they learn in a parking lot or not learn in a parking lot? It was simply, we have a purpose. Ours is live your best life. Why do you come to me? I'll help you live your best life. Whether you're a kid learning confidence in martial arts, you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company that needs mindset shift, it makes no difference to me. My purpose is to help people live their best life. So it was never a discussion. We pivoted online with 750 students. We pivoted into parking lots. We wear masks indoor. It makes no difference because the bigger purpose is to live your best life. So for me, that's really vital. When we talk about the blame game, I didn't blame the government. I didn't blame the situation. We mined the data. I got over $500,000 in PPP money, ERC, another 100 grand. Facebook even gave me a $5,000 grant because we were committed to our purpose and our businesses. The failure was never an option. So I'm not big on blame because I did that for the first half of my life, blaming my daddy and the system and everybody for the life I was choosing to live as an adult. So I've learned from both sides. So when I share that with people, I share that from learned experience. So blaming is not something I choose to do.
Anne-Marie, this is all
Blaming
sounding
is
very
just,
familiar.
yeah, this is just amazing. I'm just literally, this whole story has everything that I love in it. It's got the judgment, it's got the giving to other people, because I know when I was in the corporate world, just doing my voluntary work made so much more difference to me than doing the job that I got paid for, because you're giving to people and you're sharing experiences and you're helping, and that just is worth more than any penny. I completely agree with you. Loving it.
As we're talking here, I'm also realizing this is a common theme that we end up discussing with a lot of guests. But what I particularly enjoy is when a guest has a particular take on it that makes that guest's viewpoint so unique. And I get that in spades from you, Brannon. Your take is a very quiet take. I get people with a lot of energy. I get people with a lot of enthusiasm. I get a lot of people with, oh, I'm on a mission. This is my passion in life and so forth. You're just quiet about it. You're very, very quiet.
Well, it depends. If I got a passion through a 6-year-old, last night I had my son's basketball team at one of our locations, and we threw a dodgeball party for them. And these kids are yelling and screaming and playing dodgeball, and I think it's a yin yang thing from growing up in the martial arts.
Mm.
There's no happiness without sadness. There's no loud without quiet. There's no black without white. There's no hard without soft. And I think embracing both equally is what's really made a huge difference. I'm happy through my suffering. And people look at me like, what? Because if you're a balanced human being, whether it's a good day or a bad day, you don't run to either side of the scale. You see it through the lens of gratitude. You see it through the lens of inner peace. And so you weather the storms or the joys equally. I think in our culture, we tend to put so much weight on suffering. We don't want to suffer. That's why the addiction's so high. Everything. Suffering is part of life. It just is. And if we could look at suffering as just with the same equality as we do our victories and joys, then maybe it wouldn't throw us from one end of the scale to the other so hard,
I've also had guests who have mentioned that they consider suffering to be a choice. You can choose to suffer or you can choose to not suffer. You'll still experience it. It's just a question of how you're going to experience it. But you seem to take a different take on that.
Well, yeah, because, my best friend, she was my mom in the foster homes with me, through everything with me. She died at 40 years old. And at the time I was home from touring, and she died in the bedroom I slept in, in her home. And I remember I was out and got the phone call, and I came rushing in, and she was on the floor. EMTs had moved her to the floor, and for some reason, the coroner had broken down. So when I got to the house, there was nobody there. I didn't see an ambulance. I didn't see police, coroners, nothing. I said, okay, well, maybe this is a bad dream. And I remember walking into my bedroom, and she was still warm on the floor. My mom, my best friend, my everything. When I hugged her, I felt her pass through my body. I tell people that all the time. And then standing in the church, giving her eulogy, I said to the whole room of about 400 people, this is the happiest day of my life, and this is the saddest day of my life. And they looked at me like, okay, this guy's crazy. He's distraught. But you know what it was? And then I followed with, I wouldn't be this sad unless I was allowed to love so deeply. How lucky am I? How lucky am I? So that's it. I don't think suffering is a choice. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. When you lose somebody like that and you're suffering, I did not choose for my sister to die. She died at 40. That was it. But what I did with it determines whether that suffering turns into a choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, I didn't choose to be molested, but I suffered through that molestation. But what I chose to do it after is really the choice. The act of it, right? The action of it in that moment was not a choice. Yeah. So I would challenge that.
I love this perspective. This is really good. Emery, do you have any questions for Brannon?
I do have a question, because I love the fact that you were this pop star and you were a pivotal part of your career, and you saw that guy with the stick and you decided to change it. And do you think the world is coming away from the materialistic side of wealth being everything, materialistic success, and then more emotional?
I believe that both are existing right now. Through this pandemic, the billionaires increased their wealth by over $500 billion. That's crazy, right? There are people who thrived through this pandemic. A lot of tech companies, and now I know tech stock is down a bit, but they made so much money. So there's that, because I think with the law of abundance, the yin to the yang is the law of scarcity. That scarcity mindset exists more prevalent than ever because it's bombarded through the media, right? Stocks are down, and oil is up, inflation's up, interest rates are up. So people are going, whoa, they're freaking out. But again, the yin, the yang, if you want to keep that balanced mindset, we all know, that this too shall pass, right, Walt? This too shall pass. It will pass. And owning a generational business, and that's a strong watermark through all of this, because small businesses have really taken heavy hits, right, through the pandemic and everything. For me, I recognize that it'll pass. It'll pass. It's not the first recession I've owned a business in, right? We are in a recession. I don't care how anybody wants to say. It was the first pandemic I've gone through with the business, but we've weathered that too. So, that's my take on that.
Stuff happens, in other words.
It does. Like you said in Forrest Gump, right? Stuff happens.
Stuff happens.
Stuff
Absolutely.
happens. And it does. It does.
By the way, Emery, I wanted to alert you. You muted your mic, but for some reason we were still able to hear stuff in the background from you. So I don't know what's going on there.
Sorry,
But
guys. My
okay.
internet's good, so I was just going to the kids. Turn your electronics off. So apologies, guys.
Oh, it's all
I
good.
don't know if you caught my question because it seemed to go all fuzzy, but you may have even answered it because I missed it. But I was just asking whether you thought that, the world's going more emotional is richness, emotional health is more successful.
No, and as I kind of shared, I think it's both. The more people run into the law of scarcity right now because of the inflation and the recession, all the rest, there is a keen sense of awareness. I mean, from the Me Too movement to Black Lives Matters to this Roe versus Wade, I think the heightened emotional state, the war in Ukraine, so people's level of emotional engagement is also much higher. But, again, the yin yang, you've got to know they happen sometimes equally. It's not always like this and like this. It happens equally. So I think the mindfulness is there, and the miracle of mindfulness. If you read that book by Thich Nhat Hanh, he discusses that, and everything's through the breath and being present and being here. This is all that matters to me right now, is being with you guys. And after this, it's but a memory. But I'll miss out on the learning and the sharing of this experience if I'm not fully present, if I'm not fully engaged with you. And I think that's big foundation of my happiness. And like Lao Tse said, if I lived in the past, I'm depressed because I can't change that. And I did that for a number of years, try to change the past, which I never could. You can't change the past, nor can I do anything to change the future. It doesn't exist. And that creates anxiety. I mean, I'm 60 years old, so I have more years behind me than I do in front of me, technically. And I don't dwell on that. It's really about being present. And that's why they say the present is called the present, because it's a gift. But to learn to be fully engaged in the present moment, that's the biggest challenge.
What do you love most about the present?
Being with you.
Same.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah.
That's it, because Walt, I'm with you. You're all that matters. You and Anne-Marie are all that matter to me right now. And I'm learning so much. I'm engaging. We're exchanging energy. Why would I dwell about something that happened 20 minutes ago or what's going to happen, 4 hours from now? If I really want to get the most out of this moment, because this is all we're given. You can't measure time. Time is something that you can't even begin to measure. We put a number system on it. This is 1 second. This is 1 minute. But really, if we think about it, it can't be quantified. So to be mindful of my breath and to be fully integrated here, that's the key to happiness, I believe.
Well, actually, time is a human construct. If you take the way the human construct, there is no time. The time kind of disappears. It just sort of, oh, there it is. Bye.
Yeah, and
I agree with you.
That, clients will say that to me all the time. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not where I want to be. I said, okay, well, let's break this down. Where are we right now? Here? Do you agree we're here? Okay. So let's hypothetically there. Let's walk over to there. So we'll walk over and I go, okay, where are we now? Here. It's just another version of here. So just be here, right? Don't worry about there. Just be here. Because when you get over there, it's just another version of here. And they look at me like, oh man, that's too Yoda for me.
Next thing you know, you're going to ask me to raise rocket ships with my mind or something. I mean, good.
We can talk about that one too. Yeah, I wrote that one too. The problem with try is if I try and fail, at least I can say I tried, right? And then if I do my best and I fail, I can say at least I did my best. But if I'm being my best, I have no need to measure my success and failures.
That's a great point. I love that.
Yeah, because I used to use the Yoda one all the time from that movie, and I had to change it because I wanted something lacking. And that was my discovery.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's fabulous, because what you're basically doing is recognizing you don't have to justify your own existence.
And being is really what we're all trying to, I don't want to say evolve to or elevate to. Being is really our natural state. And if we can learn to be that, that is why I think that little kid with the stick, Anne-Marie, was happy. He was just being. He didn't know he was poor. He didn't care. I'm being with this stick and this rock, doing my thing. So I'm happy. Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing. Okay, well, I think we have the measure of the man at this point. So now we get to decide where do we want to go with the conversation in this now that we're living in right now, that we're experiencing right now. I'll tell you something, Brandon, and I've told this to many guests, and all my co-hosts know this. I love doing this show. I live for doing it every day. I've been doing it for it'll be 10 years in September. And every single time that I do the show, it's the exact same feeling as it was the last time, except that I'm never worried about the last time because I'm feeling it right now. Just kind of tying into your theme there. It's just an amazing feeling just to be in conversation with somebody, often somebody I've never met before, with some friends who I have had a lot of conversations with. And I can't get enough of it. I can't get enough of this nowness that I get just doing the show, not counting the rest of my life. This is the part that, I talk about with the rest of the world right here. So when you're talking about the beingness in the now, that's what I think about. I think about, well, yeah, right now, this is where I am. I'm doing the show again. Yes, I love this. This is great. How can you not get excited about doing that nowness? That's the way I keep thinking about it.
Yeah. It's like when I was a musician, I would say it's not where I write the music. Sometimes it's where I don't write the music. Those moments. Hear it? Right there in that silence. Yeah. And that again, I think is part of it now. There's a time to lean in and listen. There's a time to contribute. And I think that's very important. And that feeling that you experience is something I share with my clients that own businesses, right? People come to you again and again and again because they want to replicate that behavior. They have a memory that felt so good. They want to do it again and do it again. I never grow tired of this. No, you won't, because it's a very now. How can you be tired of the now? Because it's only happening now. And once it's over, it never happened. So we want that now again and again. You could call it the Disney effect. Right? I did that in a talk recently at Meta. I did a thing on leadership, and I popped up a slide of two 60-year-old people wearing Mickey Mouse ears. And I said, what do you see? They say, well, I see happy people. I said, okay. You know what I see? Kids who went to Disneyland when they were little kids. They went with their parents. They went with their friends as teenagers. They went in college. They probably went with each other when they first got engaged and married. They went there with their kids. They went there with their grandkids. And here they are again, senior citizens still wanting to replicate that memory. Just catch it one more time, right? So, yeah, it's that too. But the yin to the yang is that sports figure who's just done, who needs to retire, that wants to just one more hurrah, like one more hurrah, one more hurrah. I mean, you got to know when to get off the train. I think that's important too.
Well, if you don't know when to get off the train, sometimes you get pushed off. That's what happens with sports figures. I mean, they find out their bodies just won't keep up anymore. And so, okay, I guess I'm done, but I really miss it.
Yeah. You wouldn't know it, but I fought for 20 years. I stepped toe to toe and punched it out with people. Yeah, people look at. I was never a violent soul. My father was my instructor. Again, in poverty, there was a lot of violence. So violence was normal, but it wasn't akin to my spirit. And I think I fought out of self-preservation. I fought out of fear. And I was really good at it because I didn't like getting physically hurt.
Sure.
Yeah. But, I recognize, I don't know, I think I was in my 40s and I was going to the hospital one more time for a cut above my eye. And it was my wife, who wasn't my wife at the time, said, how long are you going to do this? I said, what do you mean? How long are you going to keep fighting? I said, I've done it since I was born. It's all I know. But, I know what it's like to be at 60 and go, punch. Hey, that hand moved 5 seconds later. That's not a good You're not stepping in a ring toe to toe with a 17-year-old kid. I'll do this one more time. No, you won't. But I mean, that humility is where I think I've become a greater teacher, right? From it. So, yeah, it's very humbling.
That's another theme that shows up repeatedly in everything that you say. Everything is about humility for you. It's a big deal. Why is humility such a big deal for you?
Because there's a very thin line between confidence and narcissism. Very, very thin line. And the only line that divides that for me is humility. It really is. But again, think of the law of scarcity and fear. When somebody says to me, you're so full of yourself, my reply is, yes, I am. Who else should I be full of? You? Conditioned thinking, what everybody else wants me to be? Or the other one I get is, you're so self-centered. Yeah, that's a bad thing. I want to be centered with myself, but I say that in a humbling way. Whereas you can see the yin to the yang when it's delivered that way, right? You're so full of yourself, you're so self-centered. It's a very negative connotation, and it shouldn't be if it's cultivated in a place of humility.
Yeah, the thing about that phrase, "You're so full of yourself," is usually uttered by somebody who isn't enjoying something about your behavior, you
Mhm,
being the person that they're talking to.
mhm.
So it's really a statement about how they feel,
Yes.
which is interesting because they're throwing it all on you, but it's really about them.
Well, there's the blame game going
Yeah,
back again. There's the blame game and the victim thing, right?
right.
The victim thing,
Yeah.
and yeah, or that other silly one in Jerry Maguire. You complete me. No, 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 no. Two whole people come together and they share life. If I need to rely upon somebody to complete me, I'm in a very bad place to be. I just am.
Well, you're entering a relationship that is going to remain unstable until it falls apart. Becau
Absolutely,
because the moment
absolutely.
that you're
But
trying to wait for somebody else to complete you is the moment you're waiting for the relationship to end.
well, I think, and that's the art too. I mean, I've been married 15 years, and to be me in and out of it is really valuable. I've maintained myself through being married for 15 years, and I love service. Like I said, I serve my kids, I serve my wife joyfully, but I don't lose myself in it. I still maintain me. I have my system of checks and balances that help cultivate me. And so that's been very powerful. I didn't get married until my 40s, and it was because I was no freaking way. I was going to be da, 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 but now I love being my son's biggest fan at his basketball tournaments. I love cultivating the artist in my daughter, or letting my wife have what she needs. That's powerful. It's powerful.
I didn't get married until my 40s either, and I'm glad that I waited.
Yeah, me
Oh,
too.
you know?
Me
I'm glad that
too.
I waited. But well, first, mainly because my wife and I actually had this conversation when we first met. Why was it that we didn't meet before? Because we were so compatible. We got along. We were perfect for each other. Why didn't we meet? And we finally realized it was because if we'd met earlier, we would have run screaming and hollering the other direction because we weren't ready.
No, no, no. Yeah, and I think that's the beautiful thing about life. And if we recognize life's unfolding as it's supposed to, challenges and all, I think that offers us a deep sense of peace. And somebody said that to me the other day, your acceptance means you agree with it. And I looked at them, I said, well, I accept there's a war in Ukraine. I don't agree with it.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then looked at me, well, what do you mean? That's exactly what I mean. I accept I was molested. I don't agree with it.
Hmm.
So again, we're dealing with all these outside energies too, and that's always that system. So again, in my morning meditation, cultivating an aura, my personal shield that filters in love and light and good people, but repels negativity, cynicism, those types of things, I think is very healthy. It's very healthy. I measure the amount of news that I watch. I needed to do a lot of it during the pandemic, being a business owner, open, close, mask, no mask, but it's toxic. It's
It
very, very
is.
toxic,
Very.
very toxic.
Yeah.
But in measured doses, it's necessary, especially running businesses, making decisions and things of that nature. But before I turn on the news, believe me, I ground myself, like the yoga tree, the roots into the earth, the branches into the sky. I'm, my rooted into the earth, but my head's in the clouds. I'm super balanced. Okay, turn on the news, right? And get what I need, the data that I need to make decisions. And I think that's the powerful thing too with being happy, is that you're going to have to negotiate so many environments that may not be akin to cultivating happiness. But I think that's the art of life too. Every day waking up, going outside, doing different things, because it has to be done. I just got back from Las Vegas. I don't like Las Vegas at all, but that's where my son's basketball tournament was. So
Ah,
what was the balance? What was the balance? We promptly went to Whole Foods. We had a kitchen in our room, full kitchen, so we could cook breakfast and eat the foods we wanted, right? Because my son has a certain diet when he plays his tournaments. So
mhm.
see, that's the balance. We had to go to Las Vegas. That's where the tournament was.
Sure.
But we didn't stay at a big hotel. We stayed at a private hotel behind one of the big, resorts, and we had what we needed. So there's the yin and the yang, right? That comes with that. So I think that's important, because if you live in a bubble, that's not healthy either, because then you cultivate this internal world that doesn't allow us those types of experiences that we can learn and grow with. And if I'm comfortable being uncomfortable, that's a good day. That's a good day for me.
I think what you're really describing here is the true value of knowing yourself. You
Mm.
you have come to know yourself very, very well. Come to know your family very well. They've come to know themselves very, very well. So when it came time to go on a trip to a basketball tournament in Las Vegas, you knew exactly what you needed. It was what you needed. It was what they needed, and that was the entirety of the calculation. So instead of trying to base it on what somebody else would need or what society thinks you would need, or what the norms say, is no, it's based on what do you need.
Yeah.
And there's also got to be a recognition in there. What you need is not going to be what somebody else needs.
Mm.
It's what you need. That's all there is to it. It's just yours. It's your
But
need.
I got to smile, Walt and Anne-Marie, because I can't take credit for that. That's my wife. I wish I could take credit for that, but she books. I mean, honestly, I don't mean to sound out of sorts, but I haven't booked a flight or a hotel in the better part of 20 years. I have a handler. So when I speak and travel, somebody handles that. And honestly, every vacation we book, I have no say in it, because I'm just happy to be with my family. So my wife books the vacation, she books the hotels, she books the activities, everything. But I'm cool with me. So I'm cool sitting wherever you want to stay. As long as I'm with you guys, I don't mind. We could sit in a box together, right? I'm totally cool. So that's her thing, and it makes her happy, right? And she never asks me, can we stay at this hotel? Can we eat at this restaurant? I'm booking this activity. I just say, what are we doing today? We're renting electric bikes and we're doing this. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I'm just happy to be with them, so that I wish I could take credit for, but I can't. I can't.
But that's what happens when you live your life in gratitude, isn't it? Because you are going to appreciate everything, just
Yeah, I
everything. So
do.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what comes along.
Yeah. And when you say that, well, see, that was my big aha moment is, I'm grateful I have my wife, because she does those things which allows me to be creative, which allows me to cultivate content for social media, allows me to do what I do. I don't want to book a flight. I don't want to book a hotel. I don't want to look at any of that stuff. I absolutely do not. And I'm so grateful. I have my wife, then I have my sister. I wouldn't call her my personal assistant, but she books everything, everything. She knows where I like to fly, everything, everything. I just love it. I love that. And I've cultivated that though too. You talk about the law of attraction. I've attracted these great people into my space because I'm being the best version of me. And that's important. If I'm not, and I live from that victim mindset, when people say, trouble always finds me. No, you put out that energy. You put it out there, right? Misery loves company. If you're dysfunctional and unbalanced, you think you're going to attract some balanced, healthy person into your space. No, you're not. You're not. You're not. So spending that time working on you, which is often a very lonely path to travel, because you have to do that work, is not what a lot of people want to do. Right? I don't need a smartphone to teach me I'm smart. I don't need a Fitbit to teach me I'm fit. Fortunately, being old enough to grow up without computers, cell phones, and all the rest, I see the value of common sense, which has been bred out of people, right? They don't have to think. There's no critical thinking. And that's a big part of my happiness, is figuring stuff out. It's just powerful, right? Because it's so satisfying to figure something out without having to look at, Google or Alexa or YouTube video. There's something very, very satisfying about that.
So I'm going to latch on to what you just said there and ask you to take it to the next level, because it almost sounds like you're saying there's a problem where the younger people are concerned because they don't really have some of the benefits. And I see them also as benefits that you and I had, and Anne-Marie has had growing up pre-internet.
Mhm.
Talk about that perspective. What concerns do you have for, I guess they call it now, Gen Z, and for the people coming through that generation?
Well, I think one of the most alarming bit of data that's out there right now because of TikTok is that the average attention span of today's youth is 30 seconds, because everything's habit, right? I discussed that passionately. Everything's a habit, a habit. So TikTok, the video comes on, I focus. The video goes off, I stop focusing. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. So today's generation is having a harder time sitting in a classroom. They're having a harder time focusing on the enjoyment of a movie. And I think that's appalling. But everything's habit-based. Remember that. Everything's habit-based. It concerns me that some young girl today will not leave her house unless she has 300 likes on a picture she posts, or she refuses to post that picture without running it through a filter and, all these things before she posts it. That's alarming. It just separates us more and more from ourselves. So again, the yin yang, I leverage technology to the hilt. I wouldn't imagine life without a GPS today, but that's mundane. I remember the day of paper maps and of having to pull over and going, I'm looking for this place, right, at a gas station. But so a GPS is mundane. I'm cool with that. But as far as critical thinking, I'm very passionate because I work with a lot of young people. They're afraid to make mistakes. So they preempt it by taking in data. But data doesn't quantify for humanism. I have all this data. A kid said that to me. I'm smarter than you. I said, you are, young man, at 13 years old. Why are you smarter than me? Because I have my phone. I said, really? So what happens if you don't have that phone? Well, what do you mean? What happens if you don't have a phone? So I think it's really important that we cultivate critical thinking, because with more of the machine learning and AI, they just make choices and decisions upon data, right? Well, the machines will eventually learn on their own. Yeah, but they're only learning based upon the data you feed it, whatever binary code. So there'll always be that need for critical thinkers, thought leaders cultivating new ideas that are based upon what? Something that a machine could never, ever engage in. That's humanism, that human spirit. You can't code that. You can't code that into a computer. You can only code the data. This is what Nelson Mandela did up to this point, right? That's data. And it's just data that's written by who? The news media, other people. So that data could be skewed. So really the human spirit, critical thinking, is what's going to dominate. And in my work and what I'm doing now, how is it that a black belt is speaking at Meta or Stanford Healthcare? How does that happen? I don't even have a degree. How is it that Brannon Beliso was at Meta speaking to the global marketing team on leadership post-pandemic? Because critical thinking, which can't be quantified by a degree or data or just simply book learning, is going to take precedent. So I encourage every person, balance that screen time, shut it down, get out there, go in the backyard, play with a stick and a rock, right? But when something breaks, and like it happened the other day, a kid broke a shelf and he was all freaked out. I said, well, why did you break the shelf? I stood on it. Was that a good choice? No. Why wasn't it a good choice? Because a shelf is not a ladder. Great, wonderful. So you're going to fix this. I don't know how to. Well, let's figure it out. What do we need to do here? Take a look at it. And we just sat there and we, problem solved it together. But trial and error, like Buzz Lightyear said when he learned he wasn't a, space ranger and he couldn't fly, falling with style, right? Failure is part of success. And if you can't embrace failure is wonderful. It's often the shortest path to success, right? It is. So.
Oh, sure. That's a theme that has come up over and over and over again with all the people that I've interviewed over the years who have their rags to riches stories, or who have had amazing breakthroughs after horrible tragedies and so forth. That you never actually meet a successful person who just succeeded.
Yeah, you're an overnight success. Have you been hanging out with me for the past couple of decades? No way. No way. But see, I laugh about it because failure doesn't define me, nor does success. See, and I think that's a big thing in our culture. If you're going to define who I am by how thick my wallet is or the number of zeros in my bank account, that's a bad conversation, right? You don't determine someone's self-worth that way. And the minute we do that, then we're now a slave to the machine. What watch I wear, what car I drive, what clothes I wear. Look at Warren Buffett. He lives in the same $40,000 home he bought, eons ago. And if the market has a good day, his wife leaves enough change for him to get a big breakfast at McDonald's. If it's a bad day, there's enough change in his little, cup there in his car to buy a sausage McMuffin. How cool is that? He wears a JCPenney belt. He does what he does because it's his purpose. Right? It's his purpose. He's rich beyond rich, so it doesn't even quantify. He gets up every day at his age and goes to the office because it's his purpose. He likes doing it. He likes it. And I think that for me has really been the key to happiness is I know what my purpose is. And that purpose is why I wake up every day, and it's cool. It's very cool.
I remember for many years trying to figure out what my purpose was. mainly because I had bought into a myth that our generation had to wrestle with. And actually, the current generations are also wrestling with it, although in a different way because they're doing it through the technology. But basically, they're facing the same dilemma. I grew up with parents who had grown up during the Great Depression. I suspect you probably did also, or
Yes.
perhaps shortly thereafter. And the people who went through the Depression, particularly those who lived very impoverished lives, which my parents both did, came through with a certain mindset, a certain mentality that gets passed along. That mentality could actually lead a person to believe that life is all about a salary. It's
Mhm.
all about making money and having 2.5 kids in a house and a, all the stuff that you're supposed to have when we're growing up. And there was like a message about that. This is what life was. And so I did that. I said, okay, I'll go out and I will. Well, I didn't have the 2.5 kids, but I'll go out and I'll do all the hard work. I'll work myself. I'll work my tail to the bone. And I failed. And not only I failed, I failed miserably many times, and each time got worse and worse and worse. And I couldn't understand why. That was when I first discovered what the law of attraction was. That was when I first started the podcast and started learning what was really making the world work. But up until that point, I thought that the world was all about working hard. I didn't realize that passion was part of it. I didn't realize that finding the thing that makes you joyful was part of it. Part of it, actually, is the whole thing. But I didn't know that. And then when I was faced with the reality of having to find it, I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know what my passion was. I imagine you probably run into people who have a similar problem. When somebody says they don't know what their passion is, what do you tell them?
You know, I think it's all a path of self-discovery. And what I'm passionate about today, I wasn't passionate about 20 years ago, and that can change. We're looking at empty nests. I have a 13-year-old who'll be off to college in 5 years. I have an 11-year-old that'll be 18, shortly thereafter. And me and my wife will be looking at an empty nest. And our passions will change then. And I want to travel more. I want to continue to affect change. I think purpose is something that we wake up to, and hard work is no longer hard work. I work hard every day, but it's not hard work because it's my purpose, right? It's only hard work. Like people say, when are you going to retire? Well, Warren Buffett hasn't retired. He's in his late 80s because he has no need. When people want to retire, it's because they hate their freaking lives. That's it. I can't wait to retirement. I can't wait. I can't wait. But if you wake up with purpose, I don't think I'll ever retire. I will simply rewire, right, at different times in my life. But I think purpose is something that's a very personal thing. But like they say in the 12-step programs, it works when you work it. So work it because you're worth it. The key to purpose is first deciding that you were worth it. And once you decide that you're worth it, then that inertia, you're relentless. Every day you want to discover your purpose because you're worth waking up with passion. And my father said that to me at a young age. I don't care if you're a janitor. I don't care if you work in the library. Just love what you do. And people say, well, love what you come, love what, do what you love and the money will come is a bunch of BS. I don't know about that. I've done really well. I've done really well because I love what I do. And that equates to money. And money is strictly a vehicle. And I don't say that because people take that wrong. Money is a vehicle. It's a tool. That's what it's for. And I can use it to take care of my team. 2 of my guys bought homes during the pandemic. I'm very proud of that. That they're able to achieve their personal goals. I like giving back to my community. I grew up with very little. I never had a birthday party. I love being able to start, my son has a card business at 13. And so he buys sports memorabilia cards. And he has
Nice.
no idea. Yeah, the most expensive card is $1.6 million. LeBron James card. That's a good day. That's a good day by far. But I grew up where, what do you think? Money grows on trees. Money is the root of all evil. What do you think? I'm made of money? So
Right.
with this pain and embarrassment, I remember going to the dented canned food store and looking at the meat, which was brown and freezer burned and peeling back expiration date after expiration date, finally to give up and buy bologna. What I can do with bologna, that bologna tastes like a steak. So I say the yin and the yang. Money is not my God, but money is a precise tool that can be used to really help people or really used to hurt people. And we've witnessed that on both sides, right? So I think it's important to understand the purpose of money, but when money defines you, and you're stressed and you're sick and your kids never see you and stuff, that's not a good day. Just simply not. It's not. And they say it's easy for you to say. No, it's not. I wake up every day and I work hard for my team, my community, my family, and I do it with joy, with joy.
I was just realizing I have to correct a statement that I made earlier.
Mm.
Most of the people who have come onto the program have been through trials and tribulations and so forth. I can recall one who came on just a few months ago. He was a miserable sod. I mean, his whole purpose was just to find a hot button and push a hot button, and that's all he could think of to do. And I realized just from what you were telling, when you were telling the story, I made the connection. He actually did succeed right out of the gate. He succeeded immediately from his teenage years, instant success. And I thought to myself, he never actually experienced the benefits of failure.
Yeah.
I just connected that in my mind just now.
Yeah. No. You know, the grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it.
Yeah.
I never look over my fence and see what my neighbor's doing. I don't know. It's irrelevant to me. You know, the race I'm running is my own. But again, knowing yourself well enough, being happy with yourself, warts and all, imperfections and all, being happy with that gives you the courage to run your own race, right? Like in the words of Frank Sinatra, I did it my way. Not a lot of people can say that. You know, and I just refuse that. And I've owned businesses since my 20s. I refuse to, wake up 40 years from now with a gold watch and a pension and go, whose life was that? I won't. And there's no amount of money you can pay me to do that. And I've been in that position a couple of times and I've said, no, this road might be a little different, but it's my road and I'll get to the same place. Because you always get those offers. I'll get you there better, quicker, and faster. I'll pay you this amount of money. I'll get you there. It's okay. I need these lessons to learn too. I need the self-worth and the confidence that comes from the mistakes and the trials and tribulations and cultivating the success on my own. But make no mistake, I have 40 employees. I couldn't do any of it without them. Without them, there's no way. I love my team. My team is so valuable to me. So I don't do it alone, but I recognize there's a lot of it that I had to get there on my own. And that was important to where I am today.
So we have a thing about, I was just going to say, we have a thing around our dinner table. So it's like, how's your day been? So we all take turns on saying how our day is. And it's always like, and what mistakes did you make today? And they'll be like, oh, I did this. And I'm like, that's brilliant. What did you learn then? So it's so that they also know that a mistake isn't a bad thing. It's a learning opportunity. So, and it's like, oh, I did really bad in my test. Not to worry. What did you learn from that you need to just practice this for? So it's always an opportunity, not a bad thing.
And it is a learned mindset, is it not, Emery? It's a learned mindset.
Absolutely.
I love it. It's brilliant when you see the 2 rockets that landed recently, the reusable rockets.
Oh, those are great.
Land back on the landing pad. But then I watched them. They celebrated that moment as much as they celebrated the moment those rockets came down too fast and they exploded. They went, yay! Now we know we have to just, say, we put so much weight on that. Mistakes. I remember when I spoke at Harvard and the guy said, bankruptcy, we define as a do-over. I said, what? A do-over? You know how many people have been bankrupt and businesses go bankrupt? It's part of the course. It's just part of it. It's not a big deal because, again, they're not defined by that business's success and failure. When I heard that at Harvard, I went, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
When you mentioned the SpaceX thing, it recalls to my mind they actually put a video together of all their failures. Have you ever seen that one?
Yes, I have.
It's
I watched
wonderful.
a whole documentary on it recently.
Yeah.
I just love that about scientists. They love failure because it gives them that data they need to make course correction, right? To make that course correction. I love that. What mistakes did you make today? What did you learn from it? That's all it is. It's no different than, eating a pancake. It's not that. But we put so much weight on that people would rather appear smart than be smart. As I say all day long, I don't want to be right. I want to get it right. So I need to be open-minded to that. But it's hard to do that unless you're, unless you know thyself and you're good with that. Hard to teach that to a 13-year-old, but they'll figure it out.
Elon Musk is a very controversial figure, but I have to admit he has one of my favorite phrases of all time: fail early, fail often.
Yeah. But that, that's his yin and his yang.
Yeah.
He's brilliant in some moments, and other days he's an idiot, and he'll admit that.
He
He'll admit
does.
that. You know,
It's true.
I'm brilliant because I'm an idiot. I have no problem with it, right? And I do what I do, and I'm a human being, and I'll make lots of mistakes. So what do you want to discuss here? Being human, right? Yeah, and that's cool about him. That part I think is very cool.
I
It's
think
very
so
cool.
too. I think this whole conversation's been very cool, and I've
Mhm.
thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure listeners have. I
Me
know Anne-Marie has.
too.
Just from the look on your face,
Yeah.
Anne-Marie, I could tell. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
it's
has been really
been
cool.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
And forgive me, I look down like this. The one thing that's came out of virtual, because I do a lot of this, I hear better when I cock my head sideways. So I find myself always sharing that with people because they think I'm not listening. I'm actually leaning in.
Actually, I was picking that up, believe it or not, because you were showing me your ear. When you showed me your ear, that meant, oh, he's
Yeah.
listening right
Well,
now.
physiognomy is important. And by physically turning, I close my eyes and so I'm not distracted and I listen deeper. It's just a
Mhm.
deeper level of listening. I don't do that when we're face to face because I love, it almost unnerves people. They go, "Hey, you're looking at me too much." I go, "What? What? How can I look at you too much? That's impossible." But I'm not one to multitask. If we're in a conversation face to face, I lean in and I just because I love it. I'm here
Mhm.
for a reason. We're together in this moment in time for a reason. Let me not squander it by not being present. But it unnerves a lot of people, freaks them out.
That's all right. That's what they need to learn. That's okay. Now, you actually have an event coming up, and we should touch on
Yes.
that. And then we
Yes,
should
we
also
do.
learn more about how to find out about you. But tell us about this event coming up in mid-August, I think.
Yeah, It's Time Live is the series, and we've had different ones: Empower, Ignite, Change. This one is called Believe, and it's a 4-day retreat. We have a 4-day retreat, a 2-day, and a 1-day. And then you can also attend the virtual event. And it is geared for the small business, personal development entrepreneur, because I think they go together,
Mhm.
especially with small business owners. Their personal development is as equal as their business development. So,
Right.
but it's unlike any learning experience. We do walking meditations in silence. A lot of the stuff is done outdoor. There's a lot of journaling and writing and crying. And of course, you'll learn the nuts and bolts of running a business and systems and SOPs and, building a team and a culture and a brand. All those things happen. So that's coming up August 13th through 16th. If you can't be there, there's a virtual version of that for the Sunday event as well. And they can find that at brannonbeliso.com under events. Yeah.
And you just answered the question of how they reach you. It's got to
Yeah.
be through the website, right?
Yeah,
brannonbeliso.com.
I mean, I've got a podcast, Success Never Sleeps and Mindful Meditations. That's at all the major podcast platforms. People follow me at Instagram. I post constant. I'm definitely a content creator. So there's videos done every day. And I don't do a lot of flash and filters and things like that. What you see is what you get. A lot of it's done in my car because it's very in the moment. I'd rather be in the moment than wait 10 hours and shoot it well and edit it and add
Yes.
music. And I've never been big on that. And I think that's the big strength of what I do. What you see is what you get. And my ability to embrace my vulnerability, because I think it's one of our greatest strengths, especially for men. Men don't allow themselves to be vulnerable because they look at it as weakness. Where fortunately I grew up with 4 sisters. And I'll give you this last story. I did not know boys were supposed to pee standing up until I went to school. That's the truth. I peed sitting down until I was in kindergarten or first grade. It's the truth.
I love it.
It's the truth.
That is funny.
And then, of course, all the social media platforms and brannonbeliso.com, you can always find me. And buy my book. It's at Amazon, Live, Learn, Grow.
Excellent.
And if you have
We'll include
kids,
the
I
link
got a
there.
great children's book there too.
Oh, you got a children's book too.
Yeah, it's called The Adventures of Bray and Tay. They immortalize my kids when they're 3 and 6 because that was
Aw.
such a magical time. So the first one's out, Focus. We're going to do one on confidence, discipline. Because again, I think life skills, none of our kids are born with any of these life skills, but they can learn them, they can practice them, and they can become a habit. It's cool because when kids can grow up and pick and choose the life skills they need to be the best versions of themselves,
Oh, it's huge.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Talk about empowerment. That's the ultimate form of empowerment right there.
Yep.
Brannon, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time, being with us today. And thank you also. I'm making this a practice now, and I've been doing it for a few weeks now. Thank you for everything that you're doing for the people who have seen and known about you, but you've never met them.
Yes.
On their behalf, thank you for what you do.
Yeah, I got that the other day in Vegas. It was the most wonderful thing. Someone caught me walking through a casino and he was crying. He stopped me and said, I read your book, and I cried. I gave this guy, I'd never seen a big hug, and, I was just overwhelmed. I said, you have no idea. I'm in Las Vegas, and you have just totally given me a moment that I will cherish forever, forever. And we cried together. This guy I didn't even know, but he
That's
read my
wonderful.
book, and I made a yeah. So I'm grateful. I'm very grateful. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And thank you for what you do. And Anne Marie, as usual, thank you for what you do. I mean, this is a fun, this is an
Thank
easy
you,
one, right?
Walt. Oh, wasn't it? It was the best.
Yeah.
I loved it.
This
Thank
is
you so
absolutely
much.
easy. This is like, just pure ease and flow going on here.
This is
The only
why we do
bad part
it.
is you have, yeah, exactly. The only bad part is you have to draw it to a close at some point. So we'll
I
do
know,
that right
right?
now.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, anytime you guys want me on, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Every Monday, Brannon. Every Monday.
And for me, every Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. And that's another story. What I can tell you is this: we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye,
Thank you.
everybody.